Hello, all. Welcome back to the Geezerology listening assignment. Today, I've got an assignment for Bob. He spent the last week or so listening to Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill, the classic, big, huge album from June the 13th of 1995. And I have a few things to say about that, but this was an assignment for Bob that I gave to him. So we're going to turn it over to Bob, and Bob's going to tell us what he came away with from listening to this album.
All right. Thank you, Scotty. I gave it a good faith effort. I just can't get into this. And my big thing is her voice. That's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me, pardon the cliche. And I remember when this album came out and the song Ironic, was all over the place. And my daughters listened to it a lot. And every time I heard it, I just kind of climbed the walls, And so I thought, well, I'll see maybe if the time, and the distance and all of that from back in those days would make a difference. And it didn't. I tried. I gave it a really good effort. I'm sorry, I can't get past the voice. And there were a couple places where some lyrics made me a little uncomfortable. I'm not a prude, but yeah, it did kind of, it's a little icky there. So yeah, this is not something I'm going to be able to get into. Now, I'm going to be really honest and open and vulnerable here, okay? And I don't know whether it's some sort of inherent misogynistic thing that I've got, but it takes a lot for me to really warm up to a female vocalist. I tend to relate better to male singers, male performers, that type of thing. And it takes a pretty extraordinary female artist to really captivate me. Somebody like Janis Joplin or Linda Ronstadt, something really, really, I guess, unique or something that captivates me. And I'm the same way with books. If I see a plot for a book and a female is the lead character, I most of the time kind of tend not to gravitate toward it. And I'm in my real life, I'm not a misogynist, but somehow I guess in my cultural thing, maybe I tend to be. So I don't know if that's part of it, but yeah, I just couldn't warm up to this, Scott. Sorry, gave it a good shot, couldn't do it.
We'll go a little deeper. I mean, there's more there than just her voice.
Well, I know that. I mean, and the music I liked, okay, the way the songs were structured, the sound behind them. And a lot of the song topics I liked. It just, I couldn't get past that voice. And I mean, it was just, I couldn't get past it. And that was my big hang up. Like I say, there were a couple places where some lyrics made me uncomfortable, but yeah, I just couldn't do it. The voice just drove me up a wall. So, well, anyway, couldn't do it. And I know that makes me the outlier here, but yeah, couldn't.
So. Well, what about the lyrics irked you?
Well, that's what I was trying to find. The song that kind of got to me. So let's see.
Would you go down on her in a theater?
Yes, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think
like I say, I'm not a prude, but that's just kind of,
do you think of me when you fuck her?
Did you forget about me, Mr. Duplicity? I hate to bug you in the middle of dinner. There was a slap in the face, how quickly I was replaced. And are you thinking of me when you fuck her?
You didn't laugh.
Yeah,
that's two lines from one song,
Yeah, and that's what I'm referring to. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so part of me is old-fashioned, all right, and that's it's a double standard. I will freely admit to it. I probably would have had less resistance to that coming from a man, but it's like, oh, women aren't supposed to talk like that. Okay, so that's my old-fashioned double standard. Sorry.
That's pretty misogynistic, I would say.
I admitted to it. All right, I've exposed my vulnerability here by being passionately honest. It's just, and music is a personal thing, the way you relate to it, and this one I just had a little cringe factor with those lyrics, and then the voice. I just couldn't get past the voice. And
So you didn't like that this was one of the most emotionally and musically raw albums that came out in the latter half of the 20th century. It was a little too out of control for your taste.
No, it wasn't. Like I say, it's just I couldn't get past her voice, and I couldn't get past the voice to dig any deeper. And I did look at the lyrics, and like I said, I understand the emotional appeal there. I understand the vulnerability in some of these songs. I understand that there's a powerful message there, but I couldn't get past the presentation to really appreciate and to be able to listen to what was being said. And it's so maybe that's shallow on my part. I tried, but I could not get past the grating of her voice. And it's the same way with sometimes how I feel about like Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, some of these others. There are times when Dylan is fantastic. There are other times I go, God, you can't sing, and I can't stand listening to you. On this one, I couldn't get past the voice. It was just a major turnoff.
Yeah, her voice can get a little screechy sometimes. I even notice that, and I understand. I mean, sometimes if I'm listening to it with a little different ear than I usually do, or something, but sometimes all of a sudden she hits one of those little passages where she kind of sounds like an animal in pain. when she goes hit those real high registered screechy sorts of things, but that's actually kind of part of what really drew me to this album in the first place when I first listened to it, is that it's just out there. We're not reining anything in. We're just throwing it all out there.
Now I don't know if somebody with a traditional pleasant voice could have done these songs, so I don't know who could have done them. And it quite possibly this material needs somebody with a not normal voice, if that makes sense, or a not normal presentation. So somebody like Linda Ronstadt couldn't have done this material. She's got a fantastic voice, but is it suited to material like this? So yeah, it's complicated for me to explain my reaction to it. So, but
let me approach it this way with you.
Okay.
Turn your gut and your heart off and use your brain. What is it about this album, do you think, that caused 33 million copies of this thing to be sold, and for it to be such a cultural landmark, especially in its time?
Honestly, I don't know if I can answer that question. Because of my visceral reaction to her voice, I couldn't do more than a couple times listening to the album. So I can't honestly speak to the content as well as I should be able to, and because I haven't listened to it enough or really dug deeply enough into it. And so what resonated with so many other people, I can't address, honestly. So I understand where you're going with that question. I just can't give you an honest answer.
Yeah, this, yeah, I mean, I got on, I wasn't on this album when it first came out. I got it, I saw, I'm thinking it must have been 5 years out. This was released in 1995. And it must have been, I'm just trying to think logically what the timeline was here, but it must have been around 2000, because when I got onto it, because I saw her on a Saturday Night Live retrospective of all the musical acts that they've done. And I'm thinking it was probably, you know, a series of shows that Saturday Night Live put together for their 25th anniversary. That would make sense to me. And I just happened to catch that one. And so that would have put it in the year 2000 when I saw it. And I saw her on that retrospective doing One Hand in My Pocket, Hand in My Pocket. And I remember seeing that, and I'm going, man, is this throwback hippie chick doing a pretty good Dylan here? You know, this is interesting. And I went and checked it out, and I picked up this album, and I immediately fell in love with it. I thought it was just a fantastic rock and roll album. I mean, yeah, you know me, you know how I listen to music. I listen to how it sounds and what it sounds like, and how well it's crafted and things like that before I really start deep diving into what it's really all about, what the underlying meaning is of this here. And so it was after I came to really love this album, just because I thought it was a great rock and roll album, and before I started really understanding what this thing was all about. And you know, of course, we all know the story. I mean, she was sort of a second tier child star in Canada. You know, she's from Ottawa, and she was an actor on a kids show up there on Nickelodeon or something for a short time. And then when she was like 14, 15 years old, she recorded an album that became a pretty good hit. I mean, you know, it was a pop, you know, Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson type, you know, pop album that became a hit in Canada. I mean, it wasn't overwhelming. I don't think it ever got to the United States, but in Canada, it was a hit. She recorded another one that was a little less of a hit. But then when she was about 19 years old, she decided that this isn't the direction she wanted to take. She goes to LA to seek her fame and fortune. And she met this producer named Glenn Ballard, who got with her and started writing some of the songs. You know, she wrote the lyrics, and Glenn Ballard wrote most of the music and took over the production of this album. And I think it was just this is such a great, fortunate meeting of these two people, because because obviously, I mean, you can hear it in the product here. I can anyway, that these two people just understood each other, you know, and put out this masterpiece. Now, you know, Glenn Ballard he's been a producer for a long time, and he still is. I don't think he's ever really recorded in a band or a solo record or anything like that. I think he's just strictly always been just a producer and a songwriter, and I think they both just met their match here, and got this one out. It became a huge success, because it was so retroactively, I understand it. I mean, the one song that is remembered, and the signature tune here is "You Ought to Know," which is where the song where I related a couple of lines from the song, and of course I wasn't there at the time. I'd heard the song, but I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it when it came out. But learning about this, and I'm seeing a couple of documentaries later, that song was such a shock when it hit the public airways. People had never heard anything like this, and because it was so raw, it was so in your face, and it was just this big, huge statement, that, or at least people took it this way, the big, huge statement of female empowerment. And it just opened up this whole genre of music, or subgenre of music, I should say, not a genre, but a whole subgenre of music that became quite popular in the mid and late 90s, female solo indie artists, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with this album. I think it's just beautiful. Like I say, one criticism every now and then the voice, what Bob is saying is not incorrect. I mean, it gets a little out of control, but to me, that's part of the charm of it. I have a couple of quibbles about the sequencing of these tracks, especially the bonus that they put at the end of it. I think but that was in 1995 during the height of the CD era, where they would just tack stuff on the end just because they had room to do it, and it turns out to be just it just kind of ruins the ending of this album, the way they close it out on the CD. That isn't the way they close it out on the vinyl edition, but on the CD. But that's now become the official release of this album with that bonus track on the end, which is just, it sucks. They should have. Did you go through long enough to listen to the a cappella hidden track at the end? On the I don't know the title of the hidden track because it's not listed on the track listing, but it's an a cappella thing where she does, which I think is just beautiful. But they tack it on the end of the second running of "You Ought to Know" after about a 2 or 3 minute gap. So, a lot of people said it's not even there. They should have just knocked off that second version of "You Ought to Know," which is a little better remix of the thing. Just take that out, take that little acapella piece and put it on, make it the last track of the album, and that would have made it a perfect album, but they just kind of screwed it up at the end there. I don't know if that was Ballard did that, or if that was a record label did that. I don't know. But anyway, I'm a little disappointed. I didn't think you'd come here and say you love it or anything like that, but I was hoping at least you'd come on here and say, "Oh yeah, I kind of get it. I see where we're going here." But but it didn't happen.
No, sorry. My first attempt to go all the way through it, I made it through Ironic, which on Apple Music is the 10th track. And I went, "Oh God, I remember that song and how much I hated it back then." So that was my first attempt. Then I tried again, and I think I made it past the first couple of songs, and that was it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, All I Really Want, which opens the Apple Music version of this, I was like, "Oh God, she's trying to sound like a little girl." And that may have been a bad interpretation, but yeah. And that was, I think I got through 2 or 3 songs, and that was as far as I could get. Call me shallow, call me misogynistic, whatever. I just couldn't do it. And
So I take it you're not going to buy a ticket to the Broadway show Jagged Little Pill?
Absolutely not. No.
You didn't go listen to the acoustic version of Jagged Little Pill?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah. She released one 10 years later on the 10-year anniversary. She and Ballard released an acoustic, a track by track reworking only acoustic. Yeah, I think Ballard, Ballard just, to me, Ballard made this. He took these wonderful songs that she wrote, and just he made it a great rock and roll record. You know, I just love everything about this record. Bill, you want to chime in on this record? You'd be the tiebreaker on this one.
I don't like it.
Okay.
I not only don't I like it, I don't like it a lot. And I was afraid that I would be in this position because I was familiar with the songs that were on the radio back in '95, and I didn't particularly find them interesting. And my bigger problem is this is the first time I actually sat and listened to the whole record, which I mean, I struggled. By the time I was halfway through it, it was like I was being bludgeoned. I could not get through it. So I didn't listen to all the way through it. So maybe at the very end, maybe it was redeemed. I don't think so. Here's my problem. My problem is not with Morissette's lyrics, because I think she's 20 years old and her lyrics are pointed and probably very, very honest and earned, because she is grown up in this show business environment where, she is a product even as a teenager. And I'm sure she had been, kind of put through the grinder with the music and the entertainment business. And so she's got things to say about it, and she does. And the difficulty I have is primarily with how she says it, because her voice, like Bob says, is really an acquired taste. And it's not something, I mean, I am used to people who have all kinds of deliveries, but she has a kind of a sing-songy delivery that really starts, you can almost start to, you can ride the wave, you can feel it coming, and it does deliver the way you're almost expecting it to. So I had an issue with that, but my bigger issue is not with her lyrics, as I said, not with her point of view, which are, I think, on point. It's that a year or two earlier, Liz Phair put out a record called Exile in Guyville, which is on every level far better, far more attuned to those topics, and in a way that, from my perspective, I mean, now again, at the time I'm a 35-year-old, 33-year-old male. I mean, so my perspective is different. These are, songs coming out from women who are, in their early 20s to mid 20s. So our perspectives are different, but to me, it resonated a lot more clearly. And I found it to be something that when I stacked it up, because I listened to both of them side by side, I don't think Morissette's record is half of what Liz Phair's is. And it was tough for Phair to deliver that consistently too. And she really did not ever reach those heights, just like Alanis didn't either. And then on the other side, like a year later, Fiona Apple, who is one of my favorite singers, she is, was also an 18-year-old with a point of view that was, anti being pushed around by the business. And she delivered it in a way that maybe Bob would find this much more appealing, because I certainly do. I mean, she's got a very good voice. She's a pianist by trade. I mean, so a lot of her stuff is very jazzy, but her lyrics are very tart. And she's, her first record, which I think was called Tidal, came out, Tidal, like the waves, came out in 96. She's only gotten better, and her most recent record is her best yet, and it's really fantastic. So the problem to me is, it's kind of a post-grunge sound. So, poor Alanis she's started as Debbie Gibson. She went to Paula Abdul, and then she's kind of like, she just kind of syncs up with the generation that's, post Nevermind, and the sound is good. I agree with you. The sound that Ballard puts around this is very compelling. I just find the whole thing is not as powerful to me as what I was just talking about on those two sides.
Interesting.
I wasn't expecting that from you, Bill.
That's an interesting divergence of opinion on this one. because I just absolutely love it. And my two buddies just absolutely don't love it. So,
Well, I
so
mean,
there you have it.
it's one of the best, one of the best
But
selling records of the
have-
90s. So a lot of people love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have 33 million other people who
That's
agree
right.
with
They can't all be wrong.
Well, it's nice to see you be the outlier for a change, Scott.
Well, there you have it, everybody.
Mm.
That's why we decided it would be a good idea to make these album assignments, just to just see what each of us think about things that we like or maybe don't like. And yeah, we had an interesting divergence of opinion here. In fact, you two guys are on the same track, and I'm not, and 33 million other people are not. So.
Well, 33 million people can't necessarily be all right. So,
yeah, but a lot of times 33 million people aren't wrong. Sometimes.
well,
two people
yeah,
are
but
wrong.
okay, I'll stay out of politics. Never mind.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll have a few more of these coming up. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Would you forgive me, love, if I stay on left anew?